It's the U17s World Cup out in Qatar. England are there. We got group games starting Tuesday afternoon. And Dave, we actually chatted with the head coach, Neil Ryan, before the Euros in the summer. We were quite excited about the prospects of that team. And they got knocked out in the group stages. So, hoping for better this time.
Well, look, that can happen, I guess, can't it? We've been accustomed to decent levels of success in the age groups over the last, sort of 10 years or so, really now. But yeah, you never quite know how it's going to pan out. But yeah, I mean, it comes around quick as well, doesn't it? Euros, then a World Cup within a few months.
Yeah, I mean, it's frankly pretty bonkers, the under-17 schedule. There's a World Cup every year. This is part of the Arsene Wenger-fueled sort of international football youth reforms from a few years ago. We've got this kind of confusing situation where the under-17s Euros qualifying is also happening right now. And there's two separate England under-17s right now. There's a group that are in Qatar getting ready to play in the World Cup. They are all born in 2008. And then the 2009s, who are basically part of the next cycle, have just been knocked out of Euros qualifying after losing to Scotland and Lithuania. Even though we've got another qualifying game, we can't qualify for the Euros. And therefore, we also can't qualify for the next World Cup. So there'll be no post-mortem on that from us. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. No. We should be doing better. But I think for now, we should focus on our brave boys out in Qatar being led by Neil Ryan. A couple of bits of info for you. We are the top seed in Group E. We're playing Venezuela, Haiti, and Egypt in that order. Venezuela Tuesday the 4th. That's tomorrow as we record, 3:15 p.m. on ITV4. Ooh. So any work from homers or any people with incredibly lax rules in the office, 3:15 ITV4, England Venezuela, also known as the Alejandro Gomez Rodriguez Derby. More on him later. Friday the 7th, 12:30, lunchtime kickoff on a Friday. Lovely job. That's Haiti. Probably watch that one in the pub with a couple of pints. Monday the 10th, 3:45, Egypt in the third group game. All the fixtures are either live on FIFA Plus or broadcast on ITV, hopefully throughout the tournament if we go deep. It's an annual tournament now, and the next 5 starting here are in Qatar. It's a 48-team tournament, which seems a bit like overkill, but they're trying to line it up with the Senior World Cup. So that's 12 groups of 4. It's top 2 teams heading through, and the 8th best third place teams as well to the knockout stage. So not a format I think that we're particularly in love with, but wait till I tell you that all of the games, guys, are being held in the Aspire Zone Sports Complex, essentially like a sort of kids football tournament, school age in the UK. There's like 10 pitches in this complex, and all the games are happening on pitches next to each other. And then the final will be played in the stadium next door. So slightly lively situation.
It's like a snooker.
Are there partitions?
Without the knowledgeable crowd. I wonder if scouts are allowed, because this is a big sort of scouting situation, the under-17s World Cup, as you'd imagine. Brazil are in it. They're the 4-time champions. They've won the most of these. And Republic of Ireland are also in it as well. So it'd be quite fun if we both got through and got to play them. In terms of the England squad, knocked out in the groups at the Euros, as discussed. Quite a lot of big names relative to this level. Bear in mind, we're talking under-17s who were at the Euros but are not out here, even though they could be. The biggest being Max Dowman, kind of the biggest name in English youth football, really. He's not around. Harry Gray of Leeds, also not around, brother of Archie. Finlay Gorman, who's a very talented Man City youngster, went to the Euros, not here. Same with Dean Benamar, who's a Palace left-back, and Rio Ungamoa, scorer of a Premier League goal, of course, earlier this season with Liverpool. The goalkeepers are Jack Porter, who should be the number 1. He's Arsenal youngster. Lanre Owesu of West Ham, and Dylan Moody of Southampton, who is the son of former England Rugby Union international Lewis Moody, who had some very sad news recently, which you may have seen reported. The centre-backs, Caden Braithwaite is a kind of a big name, I think, for this age group. He's at Man City and stood out at the Euros, even in a disappointing campaign. Malachi Hardy is there from Spurs. Freddie Simmons, who's a Brighton youngster. I'm really excited about him because someone whose take on youth football I respect very much, has watched a bit of him recently and said he looks incredibly impressive. The classic sort of just what I think of as like a classic modern English centre-back with some of the old school traits and attributes, but also some ball playing in there as well. And then Janai Byfield, who played a bit in the Euros, he's had to pull out through injury, replaced by Elijah Upson, also of Spurs, and son of Matt Upson, which is quite nice. Fullbacks wise, this is where it can get quite tough to predict because we've got players like Bradley Burrows and Bendito Mantato of Villa and Man United respectively, who can either play as wide forwards and often do for their clubs, but at this level for England sometimes play as fullbacks or wingbacks. Dante Headley of Man City as well as a right back option. Midfield, Seth Ridgen, probably the standout name. He might be the captain here. He's at Fulham, really, really impressive young player. Other options at central midfield, Louis Page of Leicester, who started 2 championship games already this season, albeit hasn't been seen near their first team since August. Reggie Walsh of Chelsea, I think he's the youngest in the squad, and I'm pretty sure he got some Conference League minutes last season. And Harrison Miles of Man City. I'm not sure who's going to partner Ridgen in midfield, but I expect him to start. I note that Harrison Miles has got the number 4 shirt, which could be an indicator that he might sit in a double pivot with Ridgen. We definitely lacked balance in that Euros. Looked great individually going forward, but didn't look like a particularly serious team in terms of winning and particularly defending out of possession and defending our own box. So we need to be better this time round. Attacking midfield and winger wise, we've got Luca Williams-Barnett of Spurs, had a couple of standout performances in the EFL Trophy for Spurs unders this season already. And then 2 Man City wingers, Ryan McAdoo and Regan Heskey, son of Emil. And I'm really excited to see them have some big moments because we went into the Euros with a lot of big name sort of dribbly boys and not many of them. Dowman had a couple of flashes, but actually wasn't excellent overall. And those guys didn't necessarily have the moments along with Ngumoa that we'd hope so. Then strikers, quite rich with strikers actually. Tynan Thompson of Spurs was taken out and replaced by Jake Evans, who's a Leicester striker. But I think he's kind of the 4th choice striker here because we have Alejandro Gomez Rodriguez. He plays for Lyon. He scored in every single Euros group game and just looked absolutely excellent, 17-year-old striker. And he is very, very much eligible for Venezuela, who we play in the first game. He was born in Caracas, hence the Alejandro Gomez Rodriguez derby, as everyone's calling that one. Chizaram Ezenwata of Chelsea and Igor Tyjon of Blackburn round out the strikers. Any major takeaways from the England squad from either of you?
The only thing I have to offer, I think I might have mentioned this actually before when we spoke to Neil Ryan in that pod, but I've seen Malachi Hardy and Elijah Upson play when Watford beat Spurs in the FA Youth Cup last season. I think it was 4-2 in the end. And Hardy got sent off in the first half for 2 yellow cards. And I think I was sitting in front of his parents. So not a great night for Hardy or his family. But he's in the squad, so I'm sure he's got plenty of potential. And nice to see Upson's son in there, and Lewis Moody's son and Heskey's son. I like the generational aspect to this.
Yeah, I always thought that Matt would name his first son Chin.
Yeah,
just so you can handle tough moments naturally.
I thought he might call him One
or Head.
One Up Son.
We could go for days.
There's very good very good interview with Alejandro Rodriguez on the EnglandFootball.com, so the official England football website, where he talks about his ties to Venezuela, how he was born in Venezuela and came to England when he was 10. He says, "What do you reckon is the one thing?" He says, "I really enjoyed it since I come here. I probably wouldn't have chosen anywhere else to be rather than England. It's a very good place to be, apart from the
food."
No. Dave?
Not sure.
The weather.
Oh, come on.
God. Wow. Okay.
Sensational. So,
speaking of famous players' sons, did you see the news recently that Thiago Silva's son was invited to the under-15s training camp?
Wow.
At St George's Park recently. I believe he's called Iago Silva, which is a lovely touch.
And then his daughter's just called a Go.
Oh gosh, yeah, unbelievable. Some of the the composition of some of these England youth teams are great fun for dudes who just like to sit around naming old or former footballers. We wanted to finish off with a bit of a classic, sort of where are they now? We won this World Cup, the Under-17s World Cup in 2017 out in India. So that's 8 years ago now. Good maths. Redeemed myself from earlier. And it's interesting because clearly, like, I, as you can tell, am someone who I can get excited about the under-17s, under-18s, under-19s at an age group where they're still quite far off senior football and certainly being like regular senior players. I understand that these guys aren't all going to make it and all be England players. Like, I've got, I think, a pretty good perception of that. I think some people sometimes expect that these guys, because we now know much more about under-17s and under-18s, I think they can be, put too much pressure on them or too much expectation that they will, become England players, for example. And clearly, when you break down age groups by specific year, you realise that they then sort of get pushed out into a huge ocean of England eligible players when it gets to senior level, and it's very difficult to break in. But Dave, one thing that's kind of interesting to me is that I'd expect at an under-17s World Cup, realistically, I wouldn't expect more than maybe like 2 players in any given under-17 squad to be England senior regulars. And yet from that 2017 World Cup winning team, there are quite a lot of big names who are now peak age England internationals.
Yeah, I remember this under-17 World Cup triumph being, quite a big story at the time, and it was sort of heralded what we've now become a bit more used to in terms of youth the success at youth levels for football, and even the seniors getting close. It was a sign of a well-run setup. And some of the plans put in place by Southgate and Dan Ashworth and other people at the FA sort of starting to bear fruit. But if you look back at that under-17 team that started the final in 2017, there were 4 standout names who have gone on to have proper, serious, top-level Premier League and in some cases international careers. Phil Foden being the big name, the standout, scored 2 in the final. Morgan Gibbs-White scored another one in the final. Hudson-Odoi also started that game for us, wide on the left, who, his career has been interesting, but he's kind of levelled out at a very decent Premier League level. Had a good season last year for Forest and has got England senior caps as well. And then Mark Gahey, who also scored in the final and started at centre back. So those are the names. And I guess you could add Conor Gallagher, who came off the bench as well, to that group as well. So there's perhaps overperforming in terms of their genuine top level potential.
Yeah, I mean, Foden's got 45 caps. Gahey's got 26. Gallagher's got 21. Obviously doesn't feel that much of a part of the England setup at the moment compared to, for example, Gibbs-White, who has 6, and then Gomez has 4, playing for Marseille now, having moved from Lyon in the summer. Emil Smith-Rowe, he was on the bench, unused in the final. He's got 3 England caps, although they feel a long way off now. You could say the same for Hudson-Odoi, albeit his Premier League performances have obviously been a bit more standout. He's got 3 caps as well. With that front line, you can tell from watching the highlights of that game, I mean, it's no surprise they were absolute dynamite. We went 2-0 down to Spain in the final. We won 5-2 because they just could not keep Foden, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, Brewster, who was standout at this age group at that time, even if right now he looks no better than a kind of fairly average championship striker and has lost a lot of confidence and a bit of zip after injuries. Steven Sessegnon as well looked really good in that game, playing at right back, kind of bombing on and overlapping Foden. I thought what was interesting watching the highlights is that Foden, like, he can seem like such an automated player now because he's always played for Pep City in a certain style, and it's difficult for him to show off other aspects of his game because he's been created into like this perfect Man City player, and what an amazing player he's been for them. But watching him here, like, you can see all the Foden stuff, you can see all the stuff that we see week in, week out, but he's also like running in behind a bit more. He like crashes the back post to score his first goal. He runs in behind really nicely and finishes for his second goal. And it's fun to watch someone that, you have such a clear picture of exactly what they do in any given situation. And he's doing slightly different things. Whereas I'd say Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi very much look, a natural progression into the players that they've become. It's kind of fun, George, like when you look at the guys that haven't been capped by England. We've got a couple of caps for other nations, we should say. Joel Latibaudiere, who plays for Coventry, he was the captain of this team. 28 caps for Jamaica now. And Danny Loader, as he was then, now Danny Namaso, he goes by. He was a Reading youngster that moved to Porto quite early, not long after this, because he was very highly rated as a youngster. He's on loan at Auxerre now from Porto and represents Cameroon internationally with 5 caps. There's quite a lot who haven't made it yet at the very top level of club football, and I think it's really interesting to follow those guys' careers as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where some of those kind of get to, I guess. Whether you've got someone like Ryan Brewster, who it's a funny case with him in terms of what he showed early on in his EFL career, where he had a brilliant time at Swansea, but since then it's kind of in a bit of a downward spiral, but now at a team in Derby where he should get a lot of minutes. George McEachran's another one at Grimsby now, who I could definitely see slowly making his way back up the EFL pyramid, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a championship player in a couple of seasons' time because of his technical ability. And then other players, like I was looking this morning, Nia Kirby was a name I hadn't heard for a long time until we decided to do this. And I was looking back, and he got injured in 2019 after his first loan at Blackpool. And Blackpool fans absolutely loved him. Like, I was reading all the messages that he got when he said goodbye, and they were like, this is devastating, don't fall in love with a lone player. And now he's at Croydon Athletic, having had a spell at Oxford City. And it just goes to show how, sliding door moments can be, where, had he stayed fit, maybe he'd have got a deal there. But yeah, I mean, it's still a very young group of players, and I'm sure for those that haven't been able to settle into top level football, like Foden and Smith Rowe and others have, Gibbs, White, Gallagher, Gahey, that doesn't mean that we won't see some of them return better. And I think for a lot of young players, they often need to kind of drop down to play regular men's football in order to actually progress as a player.
And I think in a weird way, it's increasingly hard for guys who are at elite Category 1 academies and part of England under-17s, England under-18s, England under-19s to, I think the next move, if you're not going to make it at your parent club, which is very, very difficult now in the Premier League, is so important and really can dictate like what happens next, if that makes sense. I look at some of these guys and injury will play a part, and lack of confidence will play a part. In some cases, they just won't have adapted very well to men's football and the different things that asks of you. But there are also loads where you just think, the next club that you move to after your first big one, after your youth club, just wasn't the right fit whatsoever. Sometimes it's because the level is still slightly too high. Like guys quite often move to championship clubs, but they still haven't played much senior football, and the championship clubs, frankly, like don't always want to take the risk to chuck them in, and then suddenly you've not made it at the next club either, and you're kind of tumbling a little bit. Wages are a big factor here. I can't say for sure how much of an impact that would have had on this group of players that we're talking about, but I think we've got a really worrying and troubling situation ahead in English football when it comes to young players, because a lot of them between sort of 17 and 20 years old, I know for a fact, are on wages at Premier League academies miles away from the first team that cannot be matched realistically by their next club when they leave that team. So even some of them championship clubs won't be able to match the wages that they're on. We're talking like £8,000-9,000 a week in some cases, and these aren't just the stars that you'd expect. Sometimes it's players that you sort of, because I just don't really understand why they get these contracts and how we're in this situation. I do really worry, because League 1 and League 2 clubs just won't sign these players anymore. The players won't feel like financially it's a good move for them, and the League 1 and League 2 clubs won't offer them a landing spot. So I think we've got quite a, as I see it anyway, potentially concerning situation with a group of young players who I really think are going to find it very hard to land in good spots once they leave the academy setup. And it's obviously something that we will discuss either specifically or kind of in passing as we continue with the England pod. Just a couple of other names. I mean, Curtis Anderson he often pops up in these Where Are You Nows, because he started for England in the final, winning the U17 World Cup, and he currently is out the game. he's 25 years old, and he doesn't play, and he dropped out of the game fairly quickly. He was a Man City youngster. He went out to the States for a bit. He played for Wycombe, but never made it into the first team. Yeah, the keeper. And then dropped into non-league. And now, George, I think we were looking last week. Is he an accountant?
Financial advisor, I think.
We need one of those.
Something in that, yeah. Specialising in sport, so he's not out of the game entirely. But yeah, no longer a player.
There you go. And Kirby playing, as you say, for Croydon Athletic, which is the team owned by Stormzy and Wilfred Zaha, and has a lot of former Crystal Palace youth academy players, which he very much was one of. Billy Krellins just signed for Glentoran, has had a tough few years in the EFL. He's another goalkeeper. Joe Bursick, another keeper. He's at Pompey. Timmy Omer is at Lommel as part of the City Football Group out in Belgium. And Gibson of Preston, just a good solid championship defender. Gibson he's developed into. And then lastly, Steve Cooper, the head coach. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't been tracking his time at Brøndby since he became the Brøndby manager, but seems to me to be going pretty well. He's had 6 league games, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. Brøndby third in the Danish Superliga, but looked like they could be part of a title challenge. And for Cooper, this launched a really interesting senior managerial career. He'd been exclusively involved in youth football, I believe, up to that point, and has since obviously had some real success with Swans in the Championship, taking Forest up, and less success, I think it's fair to say, with Leicester City, but increasingly looks like that is somewhere where success goes to die.
It would be great if he stays at Brøndby long enough to have some success, and then at some point become sufficiently respected enough by the Danish football fraternity that he gets the national job. And Graham Potter, who's now the Sweden manager, is still there. If Sweden played Denmark and they were managed by Graham Potter and Steve Cooper at some point, I would enjoy that.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Right, Under-17s World Cup starts on Tuesday. Games on ITV, so do make sure that you set your alarms. Try and watch this team as we learn more about them. We'll probably take a look at how things are going at the end of the group stages, and really looking forward to seeing which players catch our eye, but also, frankly, as with all the England teams, I just want to see a good team. I want to see a team that plays for each other, but also looks coherent, not just in attacking areas, but defensively as well. So, best of luck to the Under-17s out in Qatar. And we'll be back on Friday to react to Thomas Tuchel's next England squad. Right. Let us know what you think about this, and we'll be back on Friday to react to Thomas Tuchel's England squad announcement, and maybe we'll have a little look back at England's first couple of group games as well at the Under-17s World Cup. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, the England Pod, to the pod feed as well. If you've got to the end of this episode and you could give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, that would be incredibly helpful. Speak again on Friday. Cheers. Come on, England. Go well.